2024 had some big shoes to fill after the juggernaut year that was 2023. Many people were quick to call it a filler year, but don't mistake 2024 for filler. Video games showed up to play this year, and here are my top 10 games of 2024 ranked in order. Kicking things off, surprisingly, is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I didn't plan on playing COD this year, and I can't really say the last time I truly enjoyed a Call of Duty, but I heard great things about this installment's campaign, and the Black Ops series has been known for putting out solid campaigns, so I decided to give it a try, and I was pleasantly surprised. The story takes place during the Gulf War as you play as Case, and join Marshall's rogue unit tasked with hunting down the Pantheon, a paramilitary group with ties to the CIA. You're joined by Black Ops fan favorite Frank Woods and Russell Adler. You embark on a globe-trotting adventure with a plot that goes deeper than you could ever expect. Is it cheesy at times? Yes. But most of the times, it's a really fun Hollywood blockbuster level story with great action set pieces. There's a good variety with the missions, ranging from linear action missions to semi-open world missions with various objectives that you can tackle in numerous ways. There's also a heavy emphasis on stealth if you want to silently take down all of your enemies without a trace. I did also play some of the multiplayer, but mostly stuck to the Nuketown 24/7 mode. COD multiplayer just doesn't hit for me anymore, and I don't think this game does anything new to change up the formula. If you enjoy COD's multiplayer, then you're probably going to enjoy this one. The campaign was what I enjoyed the most, and it's the reason why it's sitting at number 10.
Barbara, get the big plates out.
Oh, Nigel.
Give your wife the best. Give her Big Ron's big pies.
Coming in at number 9, I have a little indie game called Thank Goodness You're Here. Thank Goodness You're Here is described by the developers at Cole Supper as a comedy slapformer. What the heck is a comedy slapformer, you may ask? Well, it's actually exactly what it sounds like. You play as this little traveling salesman dude that's waiting for a meeting at the mayor's office when he gets impatient and decides to venture out into this wacky English town. You go around this town and just slap people, and it's honestly the most hilarious game I've ever played. I really loved this game. It felt like one of those late night commercials you would see on Adult Swim. And the best part is that you can easily finish the game and do everything it has to offer in like roughly 2 to 3 hours. I constantly think about the one moment in the game that has you controlling a lawnmower as two flowers tell each other that they love each other as you get closer and closer to the strip of grass that they're on and eventually mow one of the flowers as the other flower screams in horror. Only in Thank Goodness You're Here can you get something like that. At number 8, I have Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. One of my favorite game series of all time is Gears of War. I just loved everything about Gears, from the setting to the characters, but most importantly, I loved ripping through the Locust Horde with a chainsaw. So when Space Marine 2 was revealed, I was immediately sold. It didn't matter that I had no prior knowledge of the Warhammer universe. I saw the gameplay and said yes, 1,000 times yes. Space Marine 2 was just a blast to play. Mowing down waves of Tyranids and battling fellow Space Marines turned evil by the Chaos God was just tons of fun. It felt like a prime Xbox 360 game, but with the production levels of a 2024 game. The campaign here was such a blast and can be played with 2 other players, as well as PvE co-op missions that take you to a different mission with a different Space Marine unit that ties in directly to the main campaign missions. Then there's the multiplayer that I admittedly did not play as much of, but for what I played, I enjoyed. I cranked up the difficulty to the hardest and found myself just barely surviving every enemy encounter. The thrill of victory was so much fun, and now I find myself interested in trying out more games in the Warhammer franchise. At number 7, I have Balatro. Balatro won Indie Game of the Year at the Game Awards and was also nominated for Game of the Year. But why? It's just a card game, it's just poker, but it's not just poker. It's a poker roguelike where each run is different. You don't play against anyone. The main objective is to score chips and defeat blinds, while improving your deck by purchasing Joker cards that all have different modifiers and abilities. For example, you may get a Joker card that allows you to have a flush with only 4 cards instead of 5, or a plus 10 multiplier for a hand that contains a pair. You also can purchase standard cards that add to your deck that range from normal cards to enhanced versions of normal cards. There's planet cards that upgrade specific hands, and tarot cards that act as modifiers for your deck. But what makes the game so good? Why did a poker game take the gaming world by storm? It's simple and addicting. There are no microtransactions in the game, no menus trying to sell you 5 different types of currency, just a pure video game. Made by a single developer, Balatro proves you don't need photorealistic graphics or constant updates to keep your game alive. Just give them a fun, addicting, and rewarding gameplay loop and they'll be happy. At number 6 is the 2D Metroidvania from Ubisoft, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Arguably the most underrated title to come out this year. This introduces a new hero to the franchise, Sargon, a member of the warrior clan the Immortals. Sargon travels to the cursed city of Mount Kaf to rescue the kidnapped Prince Ghassan. The story here is decent, but that's really the only decent part of the game. Everything else is great. The map is really well designed, as it will have you return into previous areas that you couldn't reach once you start unlocking new abilities. Most of the abilities involve manipulating time to your advantage. My favorite ability was the Shadow of Sumer, which lets you create a shadow version of yourself that serves as a checkpoint that you can instantly transport back to. This made platforming really fun, really creative. The combat is also a blast. Whether it's against the standard enemies or bosses, you're going to want to use your parries to stun them and deliver massive attacks. Where the game really shines is in its platforming. There are difficult areas to navigate that will have you using all of your abilities to help reach your destination. Movement is really snappy and responsive, so you can only blame yourself when you make a mistake. They also released a DLC later in the year that offered more story content, new abilities, and more challenging combat and platforming encounters. Unfortunately, Ubisoft shut down the studio after the DLC was released, so it's unlikely we'll ever see a proper follow-up to this gem of a game. Kicking off the top 5, I have Path of Exile 2, a game that snuck in at the very end of the year that has completely shaken up my entire top 10 list. I had this list finalized, and then I played 25 hours of Path of Exile 2 and immediately started moving games around, and I feel very comfortable having this game at number 5. So as of now, Path of Exile 2 is in early access and only has 3 playable acts, with the plan being 6 acts and 12 character classes at launch. This game is massive, and it's hard to have a set-in-stone opinion on the game considering I'm not even done with all of the endgame content. But at the moment, I love playing this game. There's a lot to learn and understand in the game, and it can be very intimidating to get into, especially the passive skill tree. This skill tree looks like the solar system. It is so massive, and there are so many directions you can take your build in. It's like a fun little game within a game, trying to find specific skills on the tree and the most optimal route to take. It's fun not knowing the meta and just experimenting and seeing what works. As for the gameplay, this is where the game really shines for me. In my opinion, the combat here is so much better than Diablo, mainly due to the game just being harder. Enemies hit harder, they deal massive damage, and if you're not paying attention, they will swarm you and kill you within seconds. And these boss fights are so well designed, offering a perfect level of challenge. Learning all the moves and mechanics of each fight is fun and rewarding. I can't wait to see how the finished game turns out when it's expected to release in the second half of 2025. If someone tells you that video games aren't art, just show them Neva. Neva is a visual masterpiece with fun combat and creative environmental puzzles. And it is my 4th favorite game of 2024. In Neva, you play as a young woman named Alba and are accompanied by her wolf companion Neva in a journey spanning 4 seasons in a world corrupted by darkness. Starting in the summer and culminating in the spring, I found myself in awe of its beautiful visuals and found myself tearing up when the music would start to swell. Neva is really all about the circle of life, and the game just oozes with passion from the team at Nomada Studio. I played their first game, Gris, earlier in the year and really liked it, but Neva blew it out of the water. This is partly due to Neva having combat in addition to its platforming and puzzles. I played Neva in 2 nights, splitting up my play sessions with the summer and fall on night 1 and spring and winter on night 2. Playing Neva felt like an experience that I wish more people took part in. I don't want to show any more, as I believe this game should be experienced without being spoiled. I'll just leave with saying I cannot wait for the next game from this studio. We have made it to the top 3, and I really do think that all 3 of these games could be my number 1 game, depending on when you ask me. And at number 3 is the game that I thought was going to be my runaway number 1, a game that I already made a video for, and that game is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The best cast of characters in gaming, the best soundtrack in gaming, an epic story, an awesome combat system, a beautiful open world to explore. This game has it all. For those that don't know, you play as Cloud and the rest of the gang, including Barret, Tifa, Aerith, Red 13, Yuffie, and Cait Sith, as you continue your quest to stop Shinra's corporate tyranny as they try to weaponize the Lifestream, and at the same time there's Sephiroth who wants to destroy the planet and absorb the Lifestream and become a god. Sounds like pretty heavy stuff. You would think that the game would be super serious and fully focused on stopping this doomsday plot from happening, and it is, but you'll have plenty of time to kick back and relax with a suite of fun minigames to keep you distracted, like Chocobo races, Jump Frog, a piano game, Fort Condor, and of course, my second favorite card game of the year, Queen's Blood. For a while, I thought Queen's Blood was still going to be my favorite card game of the year, but Balatro recently overtook it. But it still is an incredible card game. And I love the combat in Rebirth. The synergy abilities between your party mates and the different party combinations you could create add so much variety to the game that you switch up your playstyle constantly. The moment-to-moment combat lets you flex your dominance over the run-of-the-mill enemies, and the boss fights push you to your limit and make you strategize the best tactics to win the fight. This game really is the total package, and if you want to hear more of my thoughts about Rebirth, then go check out my Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, an open world masterpiece video. This was my most played game of the year, and I would have gladly put an additional 100 hours in the game if I had to. So, I said that Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is arguably the most underrated game of the year. I said arguably because the most underrated game of the year, without a shadow of doubt, is Nine Souls. Nine Souls is a 2D Metroidvania with a heavy emphasis on parrying your enemies' attacks. The game's setting is a combination of Taoism and cyberpunk dubbed Taopunk, as you play as the hero Yi in a revenge quest to overthrow the Nine Souls, the tyrannical rulers of New Kunlun. Nine Souls features a hand-drawn animation style that is a beauty to see in action. Seeing the effects when you dash and see the puff of smoke is so sick, and just a really slick looking game. The game is a Metroidvania, so naturally it involves you exploring a map with many paths that seem unreachable until you progress further in the story and unlock abilities that let you reach previously unattainable areas. The game is filled with fun enemies to fight, but it's the boss fights where the game truly shines. Each boss fight challenges you to be nearly perfect, as they will punish you with massive damage, but they are so satisfying to defeat, whether it's a main boss or one of the many side bosses you can find. They're all a blast to fight. The parry in this game is so satisfying to hit, and each parry builds up your talisman attack, where you hold down the right bumper and attach a bomb to your enemy and detonate it, dealing massive damage. This combination of parrying and striking when you find an opening is so much fun. This is all surrounded by a super interesting story with tons of lore that builds out a pretty cool universe. If you enjoy Souls-like games, Metroidvanias, or just difficult but rewarding games, then you need to give Nine Souls a try. It is my number 2 game of the year, and it is my indie game of the year. So before we get to number 1, let's do a quick recap of numbers 10 to 2. Number 10, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Number 9, Thank Goodness You're Here. Number 8, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Number 7, Balatro. Number 6, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Number 5, Path of Exile 2. Number 4, Neva. Number 3, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Number 2, Nine Souls. And at number 1, Astrobot. It took all but one level for me to know that Astrobot was going to be my game of the year. For me, Astrobot is video game perfection. It is pure fun, it is pure joy, it's nostalgic and fresh at the same time. It's a love letter to not only PlayStation, but video games as a whole. On the surface, Astrobot is a big budget Super Mario Galaxy Odyssey 64 ripoff. And yeah, it kind of is, but I really don't care because I love those games. I love 3D platformers, and I want more big budget AAA quality 3D platformers. Astrobot is such a wonderfully crafted game that oozes with charm, as Team Asobi directs the player to every nook and cranny of each level. With every new power-up, you kind of just immediately understand how to use it, and these levels are perfectly designed for the specific power-ups. The whole story of the game is an evil alien stole all the parts of the PS5 console, and it's up to you to get them all back and rebuild your PS5 spaceship. In each level, you go around rescuing other bots. Some of them are just generic bots, but others are characters from countless first-party PlayStation games and several third-party games that have a long history with PlayStation. You could say the game is one big advertisement, and you wouldn't be wrong. But when the game is so much fun to play, who the hell cares? And I haven't even mentioned how brilliantly the game uses the DualSense controller. Every leaf that you run through, every puddle you step in, every marble you hit, you feel in your hands, and you just get lost in the gameplay. And then there's the special PlayStation levels at the end of each world. God of War, Uncharted, Ape Escape, Loco Roco, and Horizon all got special treatment, as each level is a recreation of those games in the Astrobot style, and each one perfectly captures what made each game great. Every new level is a blast to explore and experience everything it has to offer. There are so many standouts, but I have to give a special shout out to Free Big Brother. It's a very simple level with no special abilities to use, and it doesn't need any power-ups. The level is just pure fun, and that's what Astrobot is at its core. Pure fun. And that is why it's my favorite game of 2024. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite game of 2024 was in the comments. And let me know what your most anticipated game is of 2025. I'm also streaming on Twitch at mcroningames, where I play a variety of new releases and old classics. Hope to see you there.